What's up, everybody? Mike Worth here. It is class number 9. Yes, I've been printing. I've got some ink on my hands. Been out in the studio making some posters and some prints. Been having fun. But let's get down to business tonight. We are talking about one of the last stages of our single CD cover design project. We're in Photoshop. You guys have put together 2 compositions that take on 2 of the directions that you guys proposed in your thumbnail sketches, and we're going to look at those, and we're also going to learn one more really awesome fundamental trick in Photoshop tonight, which is masking. I'm going to show you some really awesome stuff with that. Really simple, but really powerful way of photo editing that will now take your blending mode technique and layers to the next level. And then lastly, our last thing is we're going to be migrating our Photoshop composition now over to Illustrator, and we're going to be adding our type there, right? As we've said from the beginning, we love Illustrator because it's so good at typesetting. So we're going to be doing our type work over there and then figuring out cool ways to integrate it with our Photoshop composition. Not saying that this is the only way to do it, but for the sake of this project, it's going to combine both the skill sets that we've picked up so far and take advantage of them fully. All right, so let's please head over to our class, and we're going to check out what's going on my courses. There it is, the famed feedback loop. Yep, there's my my composition from last time. There's my morph file pop up. Let's see if I can get my courses. Here we go. All right, so here is my courses. Let's go full screen, and then we'll bring up the 2 comps from last time. So now, as you are seeing, right, we combing, reducing the amount of output that we have and focusing on really what is the best stuff. So let's see. So here is our, went to the wrong one, our photo collage JPEGs here. All right, so we're looking at the 2 JPEGs that you guys were asked to produce to make this sort of thing happen. Okay, so we'll go all the way to the bottom. All right, and we'll start with the first one at the very bottom. So let's see here, we've got from Blair. All right, so we've got Blair chose Imagine Dragons, and then her song is On Top of the World. So we've got a bunch of items here, cool, that are like very poppy and space related, fun. So I like overall the sort of like intense, ultra saturated color effect that you're getting. That's super cool. It's giving it sort of a nostalgic feel, like old film. These are some darkroom techniques that were really popular amongst the people who worked in color darkrooms, and are very easy to achieve in Photoshop. Controlling them is one thing, right? So you want to be able to make sure that you're doing good color. So this color feels still pretty balanced with what you got going on, right? Of course, this is void of the type. So now we have to sort of think about from our earlier sketches, well, how's the type going to come in, right? And that's going to sort of complete what it is that we've got. But from an image composition standpoint, these are looking good. I think. I'll be honest, of your 3 here, it looks like you've got 2 kind of exploring one concept, and then this other one, which is okay, right? You've substantiated by giving us stuff, so that's good. So I think of the 2, of the spaceman with the star and the old school ride, I think that the old school ride is really my favorite. I think it has way more exciting color combos going on. The reason is we lose the saturation of the blue up here, and I think that sort of tinting or that tint loss, I think, is what damages the piece. So I would say that this is maybe less successful. However, this could be great for type. You've done an effect here that can be useful for showing off typography. But yeah, at first glance, first instinct, the bottom one is working for me better. It just feels like a way more balanced composition. Good use of color, good use of the technique. So I think that's rad. And then, all right, so then we've got another concept here where it looks like you've sort of taken this old photograph and then you're having this child ride his tricycle on top of the world, right? So you're pushing the metaphor to sort of into the surreal photo world, which is cool, right? That's a way to go. So, all right, so what's definitely looking like has to happen here is you're going to benefit completely from tonight's lesson of masking. So masking is going to give you the ability to draw a little shape, a little sort of guide around this guy, right? This dude on the tricycle from back in the day, from the Streamline era, and then removing the rest of the background, but not destroying the background, just hiding it, right, by using masks. So yeah, cool. All right, So I've got to say, this is cool. This is going to benefit you tonight from the lecture and the demo. But I think you've got more of a winner here in this one here, this piece with the nostalgic sort of ride, right, from the fair and the carnival. I think that's just working color-wise, compositionally, and I think perhaps, yeah, I think it's the strongest of your three concepts. So Blair, thank you very much for these offerings. And way to get them small and in place, great. You know, we can see them real nice. Okay, so I appreciate that, Blair. Way to go. All right, so let's see. We've got Hector, right? And Hector, of course, you chose Biggie, right, with Ready to Die, and then the right, the single that we're going to be focusing on. So the text-wise, you'll have Notorious B.I.G. and then Who Shot You, right? So Who Shot You is a great track. All right, so now we've got some photographs here mixed with some really tough imagery, right? So good for you. You've got two concepts going in definitely two directions. I like this silhouette approach. So the thing that I always check in on is making sure that we uphold our idea of not using official band or artist photography, right? And keeping this fan-based. So if we are going to do something that is representative of the artist, it should be illustrated by us, right? It should be sort of created originally by us. We can claim copyright and ownership to it. So I don't know if that's the case here. The only reason is just that, like, this looks like a large dude sitting on the Brooklyn Promenade, right? Which is very reminiscent of Biggie and that sort of thing. So again, I'm not saying or accusing you that this is in fact where it is, but you know, cool. If this is an image from something else, then awesome. I think that's great. Then, you know, the sourcing is where it needs to be. And then you have this very interesting texture overlay. So we got the two bullet holes, right? Like kapow kapow. So this is, you know, right on for a Biggie album. It's expected even. And then you got this interesting sort of bubbly texture on the background, which is really cool. Kind of makes this a little like a rainy day, right? And that sort of thing. So I think that's interesting. Those are very cool treatments, I think, to what you have here with the scene of New York in the background. The black and white is cool. It's definitely a, you know, good, simple, clean. I think this has all the elements it needs, right, to be a good Biggie album. And there's definitely room for text, right? Cool. And then looking at your other one, all right, so now we have the combination of this sort of dripping blood, right, which looks a little fake, looks more like sort of shiny paint. And then this very dark looking door with New York, right, burned in the background. So cool, man. This was great. Like, you know, this lesson, I think you got the right imagery here to benefit how you would approach this and sort of mashing up a concept. You got a lot of information here. As far as, you know, visuals are concerned. A very detailed door with a lot of gadgets and gizmos and old school stuff, right? This looks like an old Brooklyn, like an old shipyard door that still has the 19th century stuff on it. Pretty cool, very rare today, but Brooklyn for sure. So that's cool. I wonder though if everybody's going to read that. Like, I know that because I lived in Brooklyn, but I don't know if everybody will get that that old lock could be seen there, right? They might think like, you know, is this something medieval or from a different area? Yeah, that sort of thing. So I would just be careful. And then, you know, the blood I think is a strong element. I wonder, could you still burn it further so it's a little bit more tinted and less sort of photo real? It looks like you did a cutout of it because I can see you've got some very selection tool looking edges, right? So you've gone ahead on this, which is pretty cool, but still using the burn technique. All right, so of the two, I think your glossy one is my favorite, but I don't know, I kind of like, now that I've seen all this red, I kind of would love to see some red. Maybe some red type would benefit you here as well. So, right on. Oh, okay, and one thing that I would suggest you do, your gunshots are a little fuzzy. I would try to get high-res ones. So try and see if you can find better gunshot in glass holes, bullet holes, out there. Just because, like, yeah, these are important, and I think they're kind of fuzzy. They lose a little bit of their strength. This one looks good because it's very graphical. This one has retained more of its photo essence and looks a little sort of low res compared to your other stuff. So I'd just be careful of that. All right, and then of course, sorry, love the parental advisory. I know we spoke about that last time, so good for you. Way to work that in. Love it. All right, so now we've got Alexis. Cool, Alexis. So we've got Maroon 5. You got your album, and then Makes Me Wonder. Cool. So you've got some cool imagery coming together. Looks like you did a nice job. What really helps unite them is the tinting. The fact that you did that sort of purple to pink gradient on top is really a nice touch. It binds the elements, right? So that's one thing that you can do when your photos don't all like gel together with color. Like they may have different, shot at different times of the day, shot with different cameras, have different RGB color schema. There's all sorts of factors that could impact the digital image. And I think making everything desaturated through the image file menu, I guess, and then putting a gradient overlay is a nice way to bind these together. Okay, so overall, I think your image up here is way simpler and combines images in a much more interesting way as far as them sort of being like one unit. While these, because of the breaks, the color breaks, they appear to be sort of different images, right? If you wanted to really pull that off, you've got two dominant images. I'd maybe make the shoes or the guitarist a little smaller so that one would take hierarchy over the other. You could argue that the guitarist is really holding the strength right now, but because he's in an area that's purple versus pink, the frequency of the color sort of demotes him slightly. But yeah, sorry, that's a lot of information for what's going on, but it's just cool because it's full of some cool experimental ideas. Yeah, I just think this one needs to achieve a little more balance hierarchically, I think, before can be really considered a contender. I would feel against this one. Again, opinion, just what I'm thinking. I think this one just feels way more united currently. So I'm leaning towards that one if I had to make a choice. Cool, let's see what else we got here. This is, all right, Ryan. Nice, Ryan. So you've got Bob Marley's Three Little Birds, right? Every little thing's going to be all right. Very cool. Nice. So you've got a bunch of elements together here. Let's start with this bottom one. So you got the gradient overlay. Cool, right? Good touch of color. Definitely established a lower contrast between some of your photos because they've got darker elements in them originally. So I think your blending mode is showing you that perhaps if you want to go this color route, to punch up the contrast maybe a little more, right? I think if you want to have these things pop. Of course, we need type in there. I'm making a call a little too soon. I should see this with type before I think I can say if the images are really doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because it could be that you have a master plan and I'm not seeing it currently. All right, one thing is your clock image, right? One thing that we should try and really work on, and I'm going to show you guys tonight, is blending. Right, is really how to use masking to blend photos that have awkward shapes. Because, it's one thing that we take a series of photos that are full screen, stack them with layers, and then add the blending modes to see them work. But now if we have smaller elements, how do we get those to sit nicely against the background and sort of like cut them out, so that they sit and look good? This could benefit from it because you can sort of spot somebody who is just learning Photoshop, unless they are absolutely intentionally doing this. Very rarely do we see this now, is when a photo shows its edges. That's what it's called. Just like a photo shows its edges. Not that it has edges, but shows it, where it's a little deliberate and sort of takes the eye away. That's when that becomes true, right? So just want you to be aware of it. Not that it's completely wrong here, but that this could occur. I think this is a pretty good candidate for maybe being an image that's showing its edges. I would airbrush it a little bit so it blended better. All right, and then looking here now at the top one, cool. You've got sort of a natural scene against some chipping paint. That's very cool. Gosh. All right, and you get your birds in the background. Good. Okay. All right. I was going to say I really wish there was another element here, like a third element to balance this out and create sort of a trifecta of things to think of, or planes, right? Sort of have front, foreground, middle ground, background. 3 items in a hierarchy, that sort of thing. If you can sort of get on that notion of threes as you're learning, it's a good way to just sort of learn balance early on. And then you can break it whenever you need to, because I know you've got it. So yeah, so cool. So I think what took me a minute though was that these birds are blurry. So I wonder, can you do something with a bird that's a little sharper, or group them in this area over here, right? But again, what will type do? I bet type may come in here and play a really cool role and do things well. And you've got Bob Marley, right? So Bob Marley sort of had this run of record covers that have always had his traditional sort of flag colors and those sorts of things. And that's been good to establish a brand and a culture and an identity very closely connected to where he's from. But Bob, has become so universal that some fan art is, I guess, seeing that style so many times, it'd be interesting to see different ways, like things to think where that color scheme wasn't always there because it's expected at this stage. So I think doing Bob in a way that's less, that way with the Remembrance albums, more like his original albums, with the giant lighter and those sorts of things. Those are really cool, and I think would be way more connected to the music, right, as it was, as opposed to how we looked at it afterwards in the greatest hits sort of fashion. So cool, Ryan. Good for you with experimenting with color and not sort of falling into that. But I think in this one, I guess I should say, I'm thinking this one's really your strongest. This one with the tree, at least I feel at this stage, and then could use a bird element that was maybe more of a poppy color in this dark green, maybe something with yellow or something that white that even gave a little bit more of a pop out and identified that third element that is in play. So cool, man. Good to see your stuff here during our crit hour, so we can give you the feedback that you definitely need. So thank you for that, for sure. All right, next we have Logan, right? And Logan mentioned last time that she is doing Lana Del Rey with the song Brooklyn Baby. Okay, so gave you some feedback last time, so it looks like you found some very interesting images. I'm drawn to each of these in a different way. This moon or sun or sort of celestial body, I bet it's a moon because this is nighttime, is really exciting. The color is great. I think you have a very well unified image there. I would do some touch up in here that can really help this. I think tonight's lesson will help you do that. And then of course here, right, we have a person's face. So we've spoken before about how people have face connection. Like when they look at ads and they do this user experience test, like they do for websites, they do them on advertisements now, and even window displays and infographics and anything you look at that is selling something. And they use this eye tracking technique. So they've noticed that whenever there are photos of people in websites or any sort of like graphical experience, that's one of the first places, if not the first place, that most people look when starting their experience. So that's something that's really valuable information to any designer, and that I encourage you to research more to find out why. So having this woman's face, and I don't know if this is Lana Del Rey herself. Perhaps this is a good time to just sort of reiterate that thing about using actual art. If this isn't and it's just a woman, awesome, rock on. Then take advantage of the face bias, right? So you've got two really compelling ideas here, which I think are really interesting. I'm having a tough time making out what exactly the third image is. Looks like a bike or something, or oh, it's a lot, but it's very interesting for sure. I'm sort of looking into these different areas of this lady's face and seeing a lot of detail that's sort of striking me in a very interesting way. So you've got like quadruple exposure going on here, all because of blending mode. So good for you. Wow, Logan, you've got two good ideas. I think either one of these could go through some touch-up and then could stand to be a contender. So I'll let you make that choice. Maybe do both, and then post both on your website. That could be cool, because these are both working. I would say if you could bring sort of the awesomeness of color into this one, maybe some orange somewhere, that would really allow this to pop in a funky way. And then I think if we can sort of spray paint away with a mask tonight that texture in the top, I think this would look, that texture looks great down here. I wish this sky was a little more pure and clear. I think that would benefit it. So I'm going to show you that tonight. That'll really help. But good job. These are strong for sure. Choice is yours, right? Let us know what you think is going to be the right one. All right, so let's see what we got here. So this now is Jason. All right, so Jason's got some interesting ideas. Cool. Some vintage photos. Very nice. Wow, these are like some crazy old school things. Some guy flying a propeller plane. Very nice. Okay, so you've got more of the sort of overlay composition, which I think is really taking advantage of the technique, I think, in a much better way, this top one. I think this bottom one less so much. This one's just sort of photos arranged together. I'm not quite sure how you're going to demonstrate that you're showing us that you can use blending modes. So, yeah, I think with that said, it's kind of makes this one moot. You know, interesting. Album covers have certainly been this way, for sure. But I think in this case, you know, we want to try and take advantage of the technique. So to me, this is much more interesting. I think you can push it further. I think it'd be really interesting. There's lots of open areas for like to show more little photos. You know, so yeah, I think you've got an opportunity with that one. I'd love to see you pursue it more. I think at this stage, Jason, it's a good start. I like where it's going. It's got a lot of pop imagery to it. It's sort of really telling a story of a time and a place, this sort of town, and really interesting too. So yeah, I think perhaps maybe you can bring in some of these pictures of this guy and the farm and like shrink them down even more and put them into the space. You know, I wonder if those things could blend into the scene a little more. Like that guy would be a really cool addition if he were sort of like in this corner. We could cut him out, you know, and show you how to do that tonight. So that could be cool. But yeah, I think you should push this one. It's really for the sake of the project, not for the sake of Photoshop, but for the project. You know, we want to demonstrate these skills. So I think this one's doing that way more. So I would push this one. I would say that's the one to pursue at this moment. Okay, and then let's see. We got all right. We got Will. All right, so Will Fowler. So let's see. We've got Lindsay Sterling, right? So shadow is here. Okay, so we've got this crowd, and it looks like we've sort of blended in all this stuff. All right, and then, wow, so we've got Lindsay herself there. So, all right, so William, what I would say is, you know, if that is just a woman and not Lindsay Sterling, awesome. But yeah, let's do something that's way more conceptual and way more connected to her, the sort of story and narrative that's built into her music. That would be more suitable for sort of a fan art cover than I think this, right? Avoiding the sort of known imagery for the band, I think is pretty critical. So, and you've only got one here. I guess I'm wondering, it'd be nice to have two. We asked for two. So yeah, if you can show another direction of your idea, that would be great. And one that's more conceptual. That's, I think, the letdown of this guy here. So, all right. Let me reload real quick and see if we got any others that have come in after the fact. No. All right. It's just this pack tonight. Okay, cool. Well, guys, good start. You're definitely showing that you're picking up the skills for sure. So let's head back over here to Photoshop and keep rocking and rolling here for a second. Let me just confirm that we're still doing, yep, we're still got the Hangouts going. All right, so here I am. I'm back in Photoshop. And this is my album from last video, last go-around. And let me pull up my layers. And just before we left, I had hinted at showing you the stars, right, and a star image. And that is really cool because, you know, any images that have, like, brightness, bright points, and then dark points are really ideal. So, you know, if you can find, textures are good because they have a lot of shadow, right? They show a lot of light and dark. Stars are really good because they show that too. Clouds are really good also because you can pull clouds right out of the sky and they look gorgeous. It's amazing. You know, trying to think what else is like really awesome. Any photo that you come across that's available to you that has the you know, really just the highs and lows, darks and lights, or anything that will transfer over. Right now that you understand blending modes, really having that inherent property of taking advantage of the highs and lows, right? Supposedly of the image, the lights and darks, that you want to start to find imagery that does that. And you know, one thing that we didn't talk about that's important is also playing with color. You know, we've been dealing with color photography. So just, you know, notice really quick with the stars. I go up here to where it says image, and then there's this adjustments palette. Okay, this is pretty critical stuff. All right, so I want to show you just a couple of things, not all of them, but a couple of things to get you started with sort of messing with images as far as their strength, right? Getting them to be high contrast, that sort of thing, and really understanding how to manipulate images, I think, is critical. So here we go. So in this case, we want to take the color out of the star. So I'm going to go all the way down here to desaturate. Okay, so saturation is how much vibrance is in a color. So if we're going to desaturate it, we're going to take it all out and make that part black and white. Okay, so I now have a black and white universe. I'm going to get rid of this mask stuff real quick. I'm just going to say delete, so I'm back to square one. So if you notice here, let me turn these off, or I turn the eyeballs off of my layers. I've got a black and white outer space, okay? So why on earth would I do that? Sometimes turning stuff black and white really helps you use them in a good way. You're not so concerned about color. You don't get a weird tinting going on with your images. So if I go back to the blending modes, you'll see, if I play with them a little bit, look at what screen does. Screen maintains sort of the original great colorness that I got from my tint, the foreground, and the rust, right, where there's a great blend. So I might want to preserve that, and by, ooh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. By using desaturate, I'm sort of removing this image, and I'm really just saying, give me your best part of your texture. You know, I want to have really the highs and lows of a star image, right, a star field. That's going to you know, enhance what I'm doing here. So I'm just running these through the blending modes and seeing what happens. Ooh, look at when I use darken, I get this sort of a really subduing effect, which can be very interesting. You know, just allowing certain parts of images to come through, if you wish. But in the case of here, I really want to take advantage of the bright parts, so I'm going to use screen because for me, that one really did it well, right? Now watch this. Before I commit and say, oh, this is the best I'm going to get because of blending modes, I'm going to go up to where it's back to image, right? While I'm selecting layer one, which is my sort of star photo. I'm going to go up to image and then adjustments. And then I did say that we were going to look at a few things. So we looked first at desaturate, which took all the color out. Great, that's one thing, okay? And it's a one-step process. It's not anything that's you can adjust, that you just do it. All right, so we're going to go up now right for the kill, and we're going to go to levels. Okay, so levels is, I'm showing you an advanced Photoshop palette right now because I just don't want you to fear things in Photoshop, right? Photoshop can get a little intimidating, but there's, of this palette, which has a lot of things to click on, you're really concerned with three little things, which is this black little home plate shape, this gray home plate shape, and then this white one, okay? So I want you to keep your eye, all right? Let me just say cancel real quick. I'm going to turn off my blending mode so you can see how the image is affected. So there it is back in full, beautiful black and white, all right? And then back to image adjustments, levels, right? And again, we're going for the kill here, all right? We're going to do some serious stuff, and then we'll do the things that are just simpler. All right, so look at my image now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the black home plate over to the right, and what this is going to do is we're creating an enveloping effect. So this image is a histogram. So what this is showing you is on a gray scale, a chart that shows you how much of a particular value it has. So this is like stock, right? So this is saying that pretty much that the largest amount of pixels in this image are this color gray, which is right about here. We don't see an exact value, but that's what that's saying. And then there's a whole bunch here, and then less going towards white, and then ultimately this sort of white one. But very few on the black side. So what you can do with this, though, is you can compress this space. So it's now saying, oh yeah, no, this part of the image is now going to be all black. And then I can bring in the white side, right? And then what it does is it creates a high contrasting effect. So if you notice, look, the whites get real white, and a lot of things that are close and in between get real white too. And I can push this to the point where this image almost doesn't look like stars anymore, but looks like an explosion, right? So I'm playing with the levels of an image, right, which is this histogram, right? A histogram is a kind of chart that shows values. So it's just showing you that if we put this back to its original gray scale, that this is how much of that part of the gray scale is in the image. So by doing this is my technique for levels. Drag the left over so it gets into this sort of mid-range here, and over to the left a little bit, and then I always drag the middle one to the left slightly or to the right slightly, depending, to get either stronger contrast or lighter contrast. So this is good. Don't look at the numbers. I know that sounds crazy, but like, I've never looked at the numbers. I've always gone by feel. How does the image feel? If it feels right, then great. Then it's doing what it needs to do. No set value is going to match the set image, right? I've learned very, very quickly that no digital image is ever identical to any other, despite being digital. All right, so we're going to say OK, and then we will then turn back on our blending mode, right? We'll go to lighten. What was the other one that we like? Screen, okay? So check this out. Look at how much better this looks now. So I've got much stronger contrast going on because I played with the levels of that particular layer, okay? So that was the hard part. Let's do the easy one. So we'll go image adjustments. So we did levels. Now we're going to do, very simple, hue and saturation, okay? So this is like the simplest one out there. Maybe the other simplest one is brightness and contrast. But what this does is this allows us to play with the saturation and the lightness of our image, right? As you can see, overall, I'm able to take out the white or the black. I can't target a certain part of the grayscale. It's an overall effect, okay? So that's why I like levels, because levels really does it right, okay? This is kind of like a quick fix. If you just need a quick overall fix, nothing major, all right? And then also saturation. Well, we don't have color in the image, so saturation and hue don't do us much good. But we could click this button, colorize, and then we can do some really funky things where we can tint the image with an image, which is kind of interesting. Look at that. Yeah, there are definitely some crazy negative effect going on there. And then even look at like how lightness plays a role. Unbelievable. There's a lot of great things that you can do, right? All through sliding sliders on these palettes. Look at that. That's kind of rad. I'm taking that right now. So this was hue and saturation. Okay, sorry, we're going back because it's not a totally appropriate palette, but cool to see nonetheless. So far we've done image, adjustments, levels, hue and saturation. All right. So last one here, we're going to go for, let's see, well, I guess what was brightness and contrast, I assume now is the shadows and highlight. So, sorry, that's changed. I apologize. I'm a little bit an older Photoshop guy. No, look at me. Unbelievable. Image adjustments right at the top. It's the first one. Yeah, for those of you guys who are screaming at me at home, I apologize. All right, so brightness and contrast. Look at this. Right, again, we can play with these elements, and then contrast will push the black and the white to be much stronger. Right, super cool. So you can do some really nice things. Just get like the brightest of bright stars. Maybe there's too many stars, right? You can tone it down. Now by just bringing out those little things, it looks like splattered paint. And you can go in the other direction now, right, where you lower the contrast and push the brightness, right? And you get like some really interesting effects going on here. So you just learned a whole lot about how to just tweak an image and push it. Now, I showed you the black and white way. I encourage you to leave the image in full color and then use hue and saturation, levels, and then also brightness and contrast, right? Our three image manipulating palettes that we looked at under image, adjustments, and then those things, okay? Good to start, right? They're great 3 palettes plus desaturate. 4 things you now know in that menu that are going to allow you to have good control over an image. Okay, now let's transition, all right? We want to talk about masking, right, and how to sort of take parts of images, right, not just the whole thing and layer them one on top of another and call it a day. All right, so here's what we're going to do. So I went on Morgue File earlier today, and I got another image that I'm going to use tonight that is in our class folder. So we've got graphic design, okay, and we've got our single cover project. Or actually, I went ahead and did a, yeah, mask source. All right, so I found this like really cool boat. So I'm going to open this with Photoshop Creative Cloud. There it is. Okay, so I've got this cool photo that I found on Morgue File, so it was available to me, and it's high res. So I'm going to do Command A, right, to get the whole image. Okay, and then I'm going to do Command C or Control C, and I'm achieving this with keyboard shortcuts, but I can also use Select All, which I did first, and then Edit Copy, which I did second. All right, we'll come over now to my EP cover, right, my single cover, sorry, and then I will do Paste, right, I can do Edit, Paste, or Command or Control V, right, and then in comes that photo, and as you can see, right, it's big in the space, and I know from image size that my resolution is 300 dpi, and I'm currently set to the front cover size dimensionally, full bleed of a CD single. All right, so I will say cancel because I just needed to know that information. Now let's talk about this layer and what it is that we're going to do. So this layer, has this boat, and I wanted just that boat element. I'm going to have it float sort of in my composition, you know, amongst all of the crazy photos that I've got. So what I'll do first, let me zoom out. I'm going to just scale this guy down. I'm going to use center scale, and that's a pretty good size, right? He's going to sort of sit right there, that boat. Okay. Now, you could easily come in here, and while you're on this layer, and use the eraser tool. Right? There's the eraser tool. An eraser tool works just like a brush, so you can come up here and then open it up, make it soft, make it a hard edge. You can add airbrush effects, those sorts of things. So yeah, let's go with a soft edge, and then we'll make the size much bigger. Right? And if you can come in here, you can see how big the size gets roughly. If you just roll out, you can see how big it is. That's a good size. So now what I can do, right, get out of that palette, is I can just come in here now and use the eraser tool and paint the background away, right, which is great. I can just totally do that easily. Okay, and this is not a bad technique, right? Like, this is working. So in my mind, that's a great technique if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I'm just, with a nice soft edge, painting away the excess parts of the photo because I don't need it. Okay, so that's great. All right, there it is. Let me zoom back in, and you can see there's the photo. It's just sitting in place right now. I could even continue to shrink it down, right, that sort of thing. All right, that's awesome. Here's the problem. Client calls and says, Mike, great job on that boat, man. Yeah, loving it. The record's going to be great. Can't wait to see it. Hey, by the way, we loved having more water. Can you make it come back? Wow. Okay, so what do you do, right, at that point? How do you sort of handle that? Because you just used the eraser tool, okay, and you got rid of a bunch of stuff. Now, I know that there's this eraser history option that's been brought on that sort of lets you bring things back, all right? But I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about a different technique that is non-destructive and doesn't force you to then Command-Z yourself back into Glory, right, or re-importing the photo. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to destroy this layer, and I can go back to my source and then copy. It's already selected. You can see the dancing ants are around the edge, so it's all selected. I'll bring it back in. Okay, some of you guys are saying, well, you could also cut it out for beforehand inside of another Photoshop composition. That's true too. We could do that. I'm just going to do it here in our composition where we can see it with the other elements. So we get used to sort of doing in composition editing as well, just for the sake of the project. All right. So we ran into a problem where now we're backtracking, right? So we want to take advantage of this idea of non-destructive editing. So that comes in the form of masks. Okay. So what we can do is you can look at our layer and we can say this is our boat layer, and that's awesome. And what we're going to do is we're going to create what's sort of like a temporary thing. We're still going to paint away the background, but we're going to use a non-destructive format to make it happen so that I'm going to show you we can just paint back what it is that we have. Now again, I know the erase to history thing is really cool and it's a great option. I've just been so comfortable using masks and getting good at them, and they're way more powerful and they translate over to things like After Effects and other projects. So in my mind, that's just superior. So I'm going to go show you today how to use that. So what we'll do is we're going to click this little button right here at the very bottom of our palette, where there's like the trash and new layer and folder and that sort of thing. And it's a rectangle, a white rectangle with a black circle inside, and that is the Add Layer Mask. I'm going to click it. And once you click that, when you have a layer selected, you'll notice this sort of secondary box shows up. And that's what's going to show you where you've painted your mask stuff. So your mask can actually take shape. It can take the shape of type or a photo or anything. So you can get really creative with it. But in this case, we want to paint away part of the background, and we're going to make that happen. One other thing to notice is that in the Layers palette, please notice that I'm in that mask sublayer right now of the boat layer. So I can go back and forth between the two. So I don't want you to feel like you're ever lost, okay? And if you notice, things change when you, sorry, I turned that off, when you go in between the two. So if you click on the mask, you'll notice at the top on your tab, it says single cover PSD, 100%, boat, comma, layer mask. So if I click that now, it goes right back to it and says CMYK. So anytime you see anything that says a color scheme, CMYK or RGB, you are on the layer itself where there's color, right? And then if you click on the layer mask, it then goes to the layer mask and it says, hey, there's the layer mask. Okay, so just in case you get lost. And then also the other thing to notice is that everything turns black and white when you're inside of a layer mask, because the way layer masks work is painting black or white will either add or remove the photographic information. So let's look at how that works. So in the mask now, which I've clicked and I'm now in, I can go to my brush, right? Not my eraser, but my brush. And if you notice, I have white selected there with black as the background color. So I'll go like I did before to the brush palette, and I'll make the size bigger. Right? That's good size. And I will make it soft. Okay, you can click one of these presets, or you can slide the hardness slider. Right? So if you go to 0, it's set to being just like airbrush style. All right, so that looks good. So what I'm going to do is, let me make sure, in this case here, the white is going to add the photographic information back, right, because we've got a white mask. So let me toggle this by clicking the two-headed arrow and then changing the foreground to white and the back, or to black and the background to white. So I'll do that. Bam. So now what's going to happen is when I paint black, watch the mask area and then of course our photo to see the elements go away. So watch, as I paint, there goes the background, but then watch what happens in the mask layer when I let go. All right, I got all this black spray paint showing up, so I can actually see the shape of my mask. Kind of cool, right? So you get this great indicator as you're working. So I'm getting rid of the hard edges, of course. That's like the first thing you want to get rid of, right? So that this photo appears to be a little more natural in the space. All right. I'm going to get it down to just like a little tiny area around the boat itself with a tiny bit of water. All right, and then I'm going to maybe use a blending mode to see how that works out. Okay, more spray paint showing up. All right, you notice how that's working? Okay, and then watch this. Oh, dang. Okay, I could just back up and fix that with Control-Z like I just did. Well, let's do it again. Oh, and I click 6 times. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, yeah, Control-Z, and then maybe your history can save you at that point. Watch this. If I toggle the colors, the foreground, background, with the two-headed arrow in the tools palette, well, I'm just going to paint white and watch the image come back to life. Really awesome. Okay, so that's a great way to like do some minor touch-up, right, where you can regain a little bit of the photo back into, right, like what if I just did little sporadic things of, right, not bringing back the image, let me take away now, the edge rather, but bringing in some of the elements. I can do that in a nice way, okay, by painting the black and white. So very cool. If you can paint in Photoshop and you can push this button down here, you can make a mask on a layer, and then using black and white with the toggler and brushes, you can add and remove elements to the photo. And it's amazing. You can just bring in a piece, and then there it is. It sits gorgeous, and it just looks nice. And now you're doing professional photo collaging. It's not just stacking separate images, but it's actually using masking, right, a non-destructive editing technique to really, boom, just explode what it is that you can do in Photoshop. All right, so that's a quick tutorial on masking. Check this stuff again, right? This is just a 101 on how masking works, okay? There's lots of fun things that you can do with masking. What I would encourage you to do is to start to look at your photos and like think about, you know, is there parts of it that you don't, you do and do not want to have in your image? So, for example, my barbed wire photo, let me add a mask, and then I'm going to just paint away. Like I don't necessarily want like this element right here. It's kind of just muddy and adds a little bit of noise. And look at that. If I paint now, I can bring more of the tiger into the image, right? I haven't had much of the tiger because he got kind of washed out by stuff. So I'm just coming in here and, you know, painting away part of the image, and a lot more of this undercolor is now just starting to just come in. Look at that. If I paint in a little bit with a soft brush, I can bring in this, right, that nice orange that's just sitting down there. Just really happy about that. Never been so happy about orange in my life. Okay. All right, maybe a little too much. But that's what, thank goodness for non-destructive editing tools, allows you to come back in and just sort of, you know, reunite part of the image that you like. Here's another technique really quick. I'm going to blend the boat into the background. using, I'm going to use a lightning technique. Let's see. Yeah, so there's lightning. Ooh, that's nice. Okay. And then watch this. I can take this layer, image. Oh, let's see where it is. No, it's not here. I apologize. Unless it's under layer. Yep, here it is. Okay, so layer, duplicate layer. All right, I'm going to make another copy of the boat, and I'm going to stack it on top of the other boat, and then I'm going to, excuse me, continue to paint away, but this time even more of the water. Okay, I don't want so much of that water in there. What I'm really going for, and let me just make this normal, is I just want the photo of the boat to be full color, right, normal, and then I'm painting really close to the edge, right? I might even want to, you might even want to go in and change the edge to be, the brush edge to be a hard edge, so that way you can just get like, you know, exactly to where it is that you need to be. Okay. Now, some folks might be saying, hey, what about the selector? All right. It's true. There is a tool, this little lasso tool, that lets you draw shapes, right? That lets you draw and make selections. Let me show you an example here. Let me turn off my boat for a moment. I'll duplicate the boat really quick. Layer, duplicate layer. I'm just going to make one to play around with here real fast. I'm going to restack it. Turn it on. All right. So really fast, if I do select all, Control A while I'm in the layer, I can do Edit, Fill, and that'll just fill the background with either black or white. So I'm going to fill it white, and then that puts me back to sort of square one with the mask. Okay. And then here, watch this. I'll go to normal. So there's that photo sitting there. Okay. So here's like where people go bananas, right? You can do the painting technique, which worked really well for us here, but then you can use this lasso. Okay. So this lasso requires really a steady hand. So what you need to do, though, is you need to be, let's see, can I not use the lasso in the, oh, no, interesting. Okay. For some reason, I can't use the lasso in this space. I wonder why. Oh, that's why. Sorry, I have Command All on. I'm going to deselect, go to Select, Deselect. Okay, now I'm much better now. We'll go back to the layer mask. All right, thought I was going crazy there. So sometimes, like when stuff doesn't work, just zoom out and see, is everything selected, or do I need to confirm like a transform or that sort of thing? You just want to check that out. All right, so guys, this is the hardest photo selection tool to use because it's all by hand. So you have to come in here and then use, all right, literally trace out, and you can see, wow, I've already messed up, but I'll show you how you can fix that. All right, and you literally go in, you trace, trace, trace. Oh my God, crazy. All right, if you've got a Wacom tablet, this is a good tool to use because you can, I've already messed up again. All right, so the hardest thing to do in the world is to cut out hair. Like, so if you're doing like a fashion magazine thing and you go to cut out hair, there are literally like filters and add-ons that you can buy for Photoshop that do that really well. There's some tutorials out there that really help with that. I haven't done much fashion editing, so I'm not a huge help on that. But yeah, I've just gotten really good at the brush, or I'll use this if it needs to be quick and dirty. Okay, so I've now made a selection. So what we're going to do is fill. Okay, so what we can do is go to Edit, Fill, and then I'm going to fill this with black. All right, because it's going to, inside the shape of the boat, fill it black, and remember, black is positive. Okay. Oh, actually, I apologize. You can set it either way. I always make it so that black is positive because I'm a printmaker, so I think of it that way. So I apologize here. Here's what we need to do. This is going to get slightly complicated, but not bad. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go, we've made a selection, okay, and now we need to fill everywhere else around this space in with black to make this shape occur, right, that we did with the brush. But now it will have a hard edge. This one you can see right here, the boat copy, the second one. So what we'll do, we've got our boat selected. We'll now go to Select and then Inverse. And if you notice, the selection remains around the boat, but then also around the edges of the photo. So all the water, everything but the boat, not the boat. That's what that logic means. So now if I go to, right after doing Select Inverse, I go to Edit, Fill, and then now fill with black. In an instant, I get that same effect that you saw here, but this time I did it with the selection tool and I cut it out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the selection tool is something that we could talk about forever. Okay, I would encourage you, get a picture of a person and cut them out from the background, or grab an element that you're trying to bring in and try to do a selection, right, and punch it out. It's a really cool thing that you can do. There are quick ways to do make masks from selections, that sort of thing. So yeah, please, we don't have enough time to go into all the minutia of the selection tool, but there's probably plenty of Photoshop tutorials out there. I may even make some myself, but at least tonight you understood with masking that you can paint away using positive, negative, and then also cut away using the selection tool, right, by using the lasso tool that we looked at. There are other ones, guys. There's polygon lasso, which is sort of a click and release one. That one's nice. And then the magnetic lasso tool, which is a little more on the natural side. So let me just demonstrate that really quick. Edit, fill, right? We'll make our mask white again. The magnetic lasso tool works well in images that have strong contrast from the background. I'm worried because there might be an issue with the bottom of the boat here. You never know. Let's try it. Okay. So the way that magnetic lasso works is you set a starting point, and then you don't have to click and drag. You can just click and release and then drag, but keep your line close to where it is. And what it does is it sort of does this auto sort of like smoothing line feature. Right? If you notice, it might lose a little bit of its, wow, it's really good. It's doing great here. It can sense the pixel difference and then plots this. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not holding the mouse down. I'm just dragging my mouse now along the edge. All right, that extra little part there was a little difficult to do. All right, and then once we make the selection, I'm going to show you one last trick with selections. Yeah, that's going to require that trick. All right, I'm just going over these parts. I'm not considering them at the moment. All right, I'm going fast, which is creating little bumps. And then there it is, right? The little circle, just like Illustrator says, finish the selection. Watch what I do now. I'm going to open up the regular lasso tool, and then you can, just like in Illustrator, you can edit sort of lines and paths. In this case, we can edit the selection. So if we use the option tool, right, look at my mouse for a second. So if I hold down the option key on the lasso, I get a lasso minus, okay? And then if I hold down the shift key, I get a lasso plus. So minus, plus. I bet you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking, that that's going to add or remove from a selection and give us a more tighter or accurate selection line. So here's the deal. What does this mean? This means that you can do a sloppy lassoing, right, with the magnetic lasso, and then go in and clean it up, right, by hand. So watch this. I'm zooming in, all right, and look at that. Look at that poor selection work there, Mike. Great job. All right, so watch this. Lasso tool. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt on the Windows side, and then I'm going to minus, and then just draw a line right here. Really slow. I might need to do it a couple of times, like a little loop, and then that cleans it up. All right, that takes away the little excess there. Pretty cool, right? That absolutely helps in a major way. So now we've got that in a few locations. We'll just clean up this line so that it's looking much better. Cleaning it up. Clean, clean, clean. Great. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so now what we want to do, these little metal pylons, that's going to be a good example to show how we add to a selection. So I'm going to hold the Shift key now. Shift on both Windows and Mac. There it is. Check it out. So I'm now, one thing I just didn't say is I start my drawing from inside the selection and then draw out. Okay, so watch, I'll do it again here. So start inside. All right, overlap is overlap. It doesn't matter. It's not going to get you. There it is, right? Wonderful. It adds to the selection. Let me fix this little boat corner, this little sort of shape. Right? The selection just sort of it got confused. The computer didn't understand and recognize that it was part of the boat. Okay, and you'll get comfortable starting to just do, right, additions to the selections. Right, that part of the boat can definitely become part now of what it is. And if you just close your loops, you don't have to make complete shapes. Just make sure it can close easy. You'll be good to go. All right, so this is working with the magnetic lasso to get a rough outline, and then the real lasso tool to do some finer selection cleaning. That's it, guys. That's how you make selections, right, that allow you to chop up and edit photos like you were an expert photo editor and cutting up things with razor blades. Let's take a chance here real quick. So let's see. I think there's, let's see, in the mask layer, if there's a thing here about masking. Let's see, layer mask. Can I apply it from this? I have my selection. Let's see if I can do, I thought there was a make mask from create clipping mask. Let's see. Nope, that's something else. Layer mask. Ha, okay. So let's see. We'll hide selection. All right, let's try this reveal selection. Forgive me, I'm not so familiar with these. Oh, awesome. Okay, so here it is. That's the trick. So you make a selection. You don't have to do my inverse trick. You can then add the mask, right, by going up to layer mask, and then while you have the selection on, say, reveal selection. So what that's going to do is it's going to show what's inside your selection versus hide selection, which will be the inverse. Bomb. Okay, very cool. So we've got some amazing techniques. I'm sure you guys are so stoked that you can go into all your layers now, give them masks, and then paint away elements of photos that you don't want. And I think you're going to really feel like you have control over your images in a great way. Okay, next step now. So we want to, if we're satisfied with this, right, and we're ready for type, we now need to output this and then bring it into Illustrator to use for typesetting. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. So we're going to go to where it says File and Save As. And now we have a bunch of options that we can use to save out. Okay. Now the two that are really going to be good ones, well, there's three that you can use for Illustrator: Photoshop, JPEG, and then TIFF. Okay. If you're kind of old school like me and you've worked with like old programs that did page layout like Quark Express or Aldus PageMaker, that sort of thing, even InDesign, you might really love the TIFF, okay, because it's like a full res image. It's really beautiful and a lot of printers like it, okay. You can also do the JPEG. However, the JPEG will not maintain the CMYK output, okay. It'll convert it to RGB because JPEG is a web format. Photoshop will maintain CMYK and will also maintain the high res. But I like to keep my Photoshop files separate. So I'm going to go with the TIFF. I'm a TIFF guy. Okay. So we're going to choose that. And you can as well for this evening. And then we don't need to have layers right here. And then this, as a copy is okay. And then we don't need that embedded color profile. None of that stuff is critical for us right now. We're going to say save. So when we say okay, we get this thing that pops up. And then these are showing all the different things that we can do to a TIFF. So there is compression and all that stuff. We don't need to worry about any of it. Okay, we're going to just say OK. All right. And if your computer's fast enough and modern, you won't see that it's rendering out the TIFF. Okay, and then I will go here to my, where are we? The single cover project. Okay, and here is my TIFF file. All right, my TIFF file currently is 8.9 megabytes. All right, so that's good. That means that it's still high res, and you can see the dimensions, at least on the Mac side, saying here 1492 by 1492. So Columbus would love this one. All right, so now what we'll do is we're going to start thinking about Illustrator. So I have Illustrator Creative Cloud open, and yes, this is a logo I just finished working on. This is the black and white version for the Seattle Artisan Beer Tasting. Pretty cool for Pints for Prostates. So what we're going to do here is we're going to open up a new file. We're going to say new, and we can just leave it 8.5 by 11. We're going to play with the artboard after the fact. Okay, or let's be good and accurate. Let's just say what it is that we're going to do. So Photoshop has our dimensions: image size 4.973. That's great. So we'll say new in Illustrator, and then 4.973 IN, and then 4.973 IN. There it is. Good to go. Okay. All right, so there is our album cover, right? We've now set the same dimensions from Photoshop here in Illustrator. So when we bring in our image, it'll fit perfectly to the bleed size, and then that's it, right? We don't have to worry about sizing having an issue, okay? So what we'll do is we'll go File, Open, and then we're going to look for in our Queens folder, Queens, R210, there it is, looking for our TIFF, there it is, single cover TIFF. We're going to open it, okay, and there it is, and then I'm going to copy. You can still work in this file, it's fine, you can just save it as an Illustrator document. Habit-wise, I'm just into doing this, so I selected it, and now I'm going to paste it, okay? And to get it to sit perfectly on the artboard, if I do Command F, which is paste in place, yeah, it drops it right in the very center. So if you paste it and it's off, delete it, and then just do Command F or Control F, which is paste in place. Cool, okay? So here it is, right? It's now inside of Illustrator, and then before we start doing anything, File, Save As, and then this will be our, you know, our what will we call this? Typesetting, right, for our EP design. Cool. All right, so that's now an Illustrator document. And again, why are we going to Illustrator? It's really because we want to take advantage of Illustrator's typesetting, right? We've been learning how to typeset in Illustrator, and I want to finish it here, okay? All right, so we've got our EP design. And the one thing that I want you guys to sort of think of is that there's an invisible 1/4 inch around the whole front of the record album, okay? And you want to treat this as if it's a title-safe area. So I just drew this shape, okay? And I know we've been working in layers in Photoshop, and you know we don't have to worry about that so much in Illustrator, but I'm going to maintain the layer setup. Cut that. Command F, paste in place, Control F, paste in place. And this is going to act as like my sort of title safe guide. Now, I'm horrible. I did not measure this at all, but it's roughly a 1/4 inch. This is a good optical approach to thinking about title safe. So what this means is title safe is text shouldn't appear outside of here. Okay, so I don't even know what band I chose. I forget what it was. So let's just say they're called the Ernest Hemingways. That's the name of my band. Just invented them. Unless there already is an Ernest Hemingways, and I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm not hip. I have lost hipness for good. Being an old folk. All right. So what I mean by title safe, though, is that right, your type shouldn't go outside of that. Right. It should stay inside of that area. Okay. Why? Because if the CD's ever cut out, you don't want it to trim your type. Okay. Unless, of course, you're going for a bleed effect, which is then the type goes off. But that's a very sort of niche special effect that should only be used for things that are trying to get us to notice that. Otherwise, it's just bad practice. So, right, you guys know how to kern and lead and to work with different typefaces. Okay. But tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to get more typefaces that are free and good for your project. Okay. So we'll say that the name of this song is The Old Man. Cool. All right, so yeah, I'm just using Myriad Pro for now. It's not like, you know, my go-to. It's just for demonstration's sake. So I've set my type, right? It's all here. But I want you to see, guys, that what you can actually do in Illustrator is you can use Illustrator's blending mode effects, which is not in the same place as it is in Photoshop. It's not in layers because you're dealing with objects as opposed to layers, right? So in the case of Illustrator, the transparency palette, which is right here, and it's otherwise in, if you don't have it, Window, and then scroll down alphabetical order to T for transparency. And in transparency, you choose an object like the type The Old Man, and then your blending modes are here. And this is where you can do your different blending modes. And they're not all the same as they are in Photoshop and Illustrator. So I'm sorry. But there's some good ones. You know, you can do some fun things. Like I use a little more of the opacity settings here than if I were to in Photoshop, because there's way more blending modes in Photoshop. So that's kind of how I roll. Yeah. So right? This is where now you have fun and experiment with your type. I'm doing something right now called the scale justification. We're going to learn how to do it for our final project. But right now I'm just pulling it off because it's a cool technique. Right? It's where you take like one word and then make it as wide through scaling it up as the preceding line. I'm going to lock the layer with the image. I'm done editing it, so I don't need to move it at all. So if I keep it in place, it gives me the freedom to be a little more sort of expressive with my type. Right? I might need to play with contrast here a little bit more. Right? So making sure I maintain title safe. And then when I'm done, right, if I'm like, yeah, this is it, this is the way to go. Sorry, I should put my type on its own layer. And I can turn off title safe, right? And then title safe is just sort of understood at this stage. So this is a cool way to, right, just have title safe on and off for you, right, as you're working, so you know not to go over the boundaries. Go up to them, but not over them. Okay, and you can see it looks nice. There's margin, nice good balance of margin around the edge of your photo, right, with type to the background. So cool. You guys have plans to make stuff look great here, okay? So, all right, here's the deal. For the sake of the project, I want you to output 2 files, all right? The first one is going to be one that you will save as if you print it. So I want you to give me a high-res image that you're going to output. So watch what we're going to do. We're going to go File, and then you'll go to Export, okay, and then you have image choices here. So you can choose the TIFF or the JPEG, okay, here. I'm going to ask guys that you try the TIFF here for printing. So if you choose TIFF, okay, because everything's sized properly ahead of time, you don't have to worry about it. You can just export. And then you'll get a pop-up. It'll say color model and resolution. It should be all set to what it is that you want to do. And then you can say OK. And then there's that output process. And now, in the end, what you should have from Photoshop to Illustrator is now a TIFF that has your high-res image and then also your high-res type. And if you notice, the image got a lot bigger, 17 megabytes from previous. Okay, this will print beautifully. This would like really be the front cover of a CD, right? And could be used in production. So there it is, guys, right? You now know how to professionally output your stuff that's ready for production. Now, granted, we're just doing the cover because we're not a class that has the ability to do slicing and dicing because we're meeting online. So the way that this would be laid out in reality, right? If we were looking at a CD cover, let me pull open a CD cover design, is in something called a folded card, which would be something that would be more of a wraparound. Let me see if I can find you an example here of what that looks like. Yeah, here we go. This would be how you would really lay it out. You would sort of think of the CD in like 3 sections, right? That would hold the disc and that would fold. So really, it sort of looks more like this in Photoshop than what we have. We just took the cover, this one square, but really it has these sides, the back, the inner card, all that stuff. All that's important, right? And again, for the sake of our project, we're worrying about the front cover, whereas in real life you would need to design both sides, right? And this is a single too. This is a full record, right? Where the back has way more information. So anyway, just so you understand that that's something that we've changed for our project here. Okay, so the second type of file that you're going to be outputting is one that we'll need just for online to look at your final graphic. And that's just going to be a web JPEG. So you go Save for Web, okay, and then, gosh, that's tiny. Well, that's really tiny. All right, so sorry, here in the web JPEG, why is it so small? I really am wondering why. No, it's the right size. It's probably translating to actual pixels as being that tiny. Okay. Wow. All right. So what we'll do here is, if you guys could please, is in Illustrator when you do Save for Web, there's this image size. We set it to JPEG first, and then there's this image size thing, and then rather than typing in numbers in percentage, type in 300%. All right, and then click on anything else, and then you'll watch the image get big. All right. So 300% makes this 1074 by 1074. Right, that should be the same measurement for you. Save this. Okay, so we'll say save, and then that's a nice size to show for our online purposes, right? So you can actually post the image up online when you're all said and done. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is due next week, and I will grade these. This is project 2, and what I want you guys to really try and master in this go around is a lot of stuff. Well, first thing is masking in Photoshop, right? Going in and playing with the layers, working with selections, working with painting away, right? Ultimately, we're trying to achieve a goal. So, you have a lifetime to get good at masking, but get good at the masking you need to do right now. That's really what is the most important thing to learn. The next thing we did was learning about selections as well as the paint away, so that way we expanded masking. And then we also did this fun adjustments setting using image adjustments. We did levels, brightness, contrast, desaturate, and then also hue and saturation, right, which has a bunch of effects that you can do to your photos. But really what it was to tease out the sort of super strong highs and lows of the different photos. Then we went to File and then Save As, and then we saved our image ready for print as a TIFF, okay, and we saved this background as a TIFF, and then we brought that, with it still open, let me save my Photoshop document, over to Illustrator, and in Illustrator we opened up a new document, setting it to our exact dimensions of our full bleed from Photoshop, and then we were able to copy and paste from using File Open our background, and then we dropped it in. We set a title safe zone, which we, in our minds, said was about a 1/4 of an inch around the whole edge. That allows us to put type sort of within the space and for it to be what it's going to be. Okay, and then we experimented with a little bit of type design and some blending modes. Okay. Ooh, and one thing, sorry, I'm getting this in the review, is you can add fonts to your computer. Okay. Now I'm going to go to a really cool website called Font Squirrel, and I love Font Squirrel because they're a little more curatorial with how they roll than just sort of some of the other sites that have a lot of fonts. Okay, so Font Squirrel is pretty rad because it has, these are their top fonts. They're not like crazy kitschy, like designed for one instance kind of fonts. They're very usable, very versatile fonts, and some of them are fun and wild and crazy and do all sorts of crazy things. And then also, subsequently, a lot of these fonts are available for web fonts, meaning you can use them on your website, which is really cool. Now, over on the right here, you've got like all this crazy stuff. Okay, so you can look for like hand-drawn fonts. So here are like handmade fonts. That's like a really nice thing to add. I saw some of you guys use that in your piece. And then I like this one, Elliott Sticks or Elliott 6, and you can do this little blue click download TTF. And then you can download this to your downloads folder. Okay. Now I can't show you how to do this on the PC. I apologize, but I would look up, how to add fonts to Windows on your machine. A quick Google search, I think, will show a video that'll help. And then, but on the Mac side, if we click the zip file, Elliott 6, then we can click on the TTF file, double click. And then that opens up the font book on the Mac side. Oop, I didn't mean to make that alias there, sorry. And then here it says install font. And it will install. Cool. And now it's part of our lists. And we can go back over to Illustrator. Illustrator might may show the beach ball for a second, just that it's thinking. But now if you go through your font list, what was this called? Elliott 6. There it is, 2 L's in Elliott. Double click. Ooh, look at that. And it instantly is now a part of your project. So this is how you can work in some really great groovy fonts. Let's turn title safe back on to make sure we're in clear. Fun, right? This looks like the Jeremy font from Pearl Jam. So that's kind of cool. If you're a little older like me, you know what that means. So yeah, cool. So this one needs a little bit different of a leading setting. That's fine. So, get out there, guys. Look for fonts, okay? And, also remember that we want to sort of keep a connection with style. So the font that I chose here, you know, sort of has a whimsical style. So like, what styles are whimsical, right? I'm not asking you to sort of pioneer something new. Just, you know, look at what you got, look at what it's doing, and then try to look at other styles that have existed in the past that you can make connections to, okay? And then I'll write up a little thing. What I want you to do is write a little paragraph that gives an explanation of your piece. Defend it, right? Explain why it's a good idea, like where it came from, why it's a good idea, and what sort of styles you think are woven into it, okay? So, guys, lots of stuff, right? Lots of stuff that we covered tonight. But this was a biggie. This is sort of a breakthrough kind of night for doing the kind of work that we're doing. So I can't wait to see, you know, what it is that you guys got going on. Now that you've learned how to cut up photos using selections and masks in Photoshop, and then how to sort of envelope the colors so that way you can really get some punchiness out of it, I think your stuff's going to go to 11, right, in a really cool way. You now know how to professionally take your image, save it as a TIFF, a TIFF, that maintains the high-res format and it's all its wonderful CMYK printable color, and brings it over to Illustrator, ready to have type just seared into it. You can do blending modes in Illustrator so that the type feels a little more connected. Just experiment, be traditional, be wild, do what you think is cool, but you know, make a great record cover, right, where type and image are married well together. And then lastly, you know, don't forget, go to graphicdesignhistory.org and Google graphic design history and look up the different movements of the 20th century. You got Bauhaus, the style, the Vienna Werkstatt, you know, eclectic 80s, Japanese style from the 70s, you know, infographic style, graffiti style, street art, minimalism. I mean, there's so many that you can go off, and you know, they really all have a really rich history and a really unique visual identity that I want you guys to dialogue with. Okay, so this might be one video you need to rewatch because it has a lot of things, and I did move rather quickly. But this is where we're at, right? We need to get a lot covered in a little bit of time. Graphic designers are constantly called on to be resourceful and to go out there and learn what they need to learn to get the job done. So the critical point tonight, guys, is don't learn everything. Don't feel like you got to master masking tonight, or master selections, or master any of the things that I covered. Do master the part that you need to make your idea successful. Okay, that's what you need to know. That's what's on the test. So, you know, hopefully that removes a little bit of burden of you thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I really need to learn this because I want to know Photoshop. This is just the beginning, right? Bring yourself back. Make more album covers, right? If this is the kind of project that you feel can let you experiment with your skills and your techniques and broaden them, make more. Do an entire album for your favorite band, right? Try and source some images and really get some great stuff going. You know, there's a whole world of things out there. One last website I'm going to give you, and I will post the link up on our feed, is for a website called Gig Posters. Okay, really quick, let me just show you that, because Gig Posters is legit. All right, this is like one of the last places that you're going to see people doing fan-based art for their favorite bands that just are just killing it. Okay, and you can go like, yeah, let's go to the new arrivals. It's by designer, it's by band. I mean, look at this stuff. It is like no holds barred. Like every type of style, every type of color, image that you can think of, because this is a competitive space, right? You're vying for the eyes of music fans, right? And if you're not doing something epic and awesome, but then also connecting it to the music, then yeah, why bother? Gosh, I mean, look at this stuff. This is beautiful. Like, this is totally like a 60s sort of mod style connected with punk. I mean, there's just a lot of great stuff going on here. This reminds me of the designer Saul Bass, right, who did a lot of great work. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for inspiration, go to gigposters.com. It is a great website. I'm having fun talking about it and just showing it to you here. Great for fonts, for colors, and for just approach on how you can sort of see this. You know, you've made an idea already. I would say now it's okay, head over and look up the band maybe that you're looking for, right, that you're working on, and see what other people have done, okay? And, you know, look look at it as here's the sense of the lay of the land, not, ooh, what am I going to steal and just replicate, right? That's not exactly what you want to do. Wow, I'm so sorry. Huge geek moment. Look at this. That is Lionel from the Thundercats, okay? He's using the Sword of Omens, giving him sight beyond sight. If you're with me, awesome. Okay, if you're not, I'm sorry if I'm scaring you. But Gig Posters is a great place. Okay, back to the camera. Okay, all right, give me sight beyond sight. All right, look up Thundercats, and you'll understand what I'm saying. It was a show from my childhood. Anyhow, so now you've got a place for fonts. You've got a place for inspiration from Gig Posters. Font Swirl was the place that we went before, and we've all got great ideas. Put them into action, okay? Hit me up with questions if you guys have them. But good luck. This is our last week with this project, and we're going to start the next project, okay, coming up real soon. So I'm going to send out an email asking you guys to think about that, okay, because we're going to be designing a movie poster. So think of a movie that you want to design a poster for. Cool. All right. So you guys, good luck. Kick some butt on this, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you got. All right. Until next time, I am Mike Worth, and this has been Art 210. Boom. I'm out.